The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. My name is Joni Siegel, and I am the host for this podcast. My husband, Steve Siegel, is the producer for the podcast. Just a reminder to please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. That way, when people are looking for help, when they're addicted or when someone they know is addicted, they'll find us. Google will bring us up. Also, if you could check out our YouTube channel and please subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when we have a new video. And once again, give our videos a thumbs up, again, so that people will find us when they need help. Today's episode is episode number 309, and today we are interviewing a gentleman named Ryan Phillips. Ryan grew up with a great childhood and a close-knit family. All he focused on was becoming a successful hockey star, which his parents fully supported. He left home at the age of 16 to play professional hockey. At the height of Ryan's fame and game prowess, when he was arrested for importing a large amount of marijuana into the United States over the Canadian border. He was incarcerated and detained and then prohibited from re-entering for life by Homeland Security. In 2012, he was granted access as a humanitarian back to the USA. He started to really focus on doing good in the world. And that's where our interview brings us today. So let's talk to Ryan Phillips. Ryan Phillips, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and being willing to share your story. With what you told us before we went live here, we've got some interesting things to talk about today. Well,
absolutely. It's my absolute pleasure. And it's very nice to meet you. Like I said, I'm an open book. And if we can help just one person, hopefully more, then that's our goal here. So, fire away, just not too hard because I don't have my hockey helmet on.
It's okay. I'm a very easygoing interviewer. I never ask, when did you stop beating your wife? I'm not one of those types of interviewers.
Well, that would taint my reputation for being an advocate for child sex slavery. So.
Okay. So take us back to your childhood. I know you were a professional athlete at a very young age. Tell us a little bit about that and then how you got into drugs.
Well, I was basically born with a hockey stick in my hands. I will say, I was very gifted in many sports, but hockey was my go-to. That was, in Canada, that's kind of, it's our lacrosse is our national sport, but hockey is, obviously all eyes, and almost every kid's dream is to play the National Hockey League. So, from the time that I remember watching Hockey Night in Canada, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, who were my idols, that's just basically my dad. My dad was a great hockey player too. And, that's all I ever wanted was to be a hockey player. So, it was pretty tough for mom to get the stick out of the hands. Vancouver is not that cold, but when it was cold enough, we had an outdoor rink in the backyard. It's all I ever wanted to do was to play hockey. And at 16, I left home to pursue my dream. I had just turned 16. And, before then, I was the guy that never smoked, never drank. If anyone was ever to say that Ryan Phillips was going to be addicted to anything other than hockey and sports and laughing his balls off at whatever, and I was just had a kind of a one of those personalities where I like to make people laugh, and they would have thought that it was just insanity. And the culture of hockey really is, it's very glamorized on the outside, but what people don't see is the inner confines of that game, which, a lot of it has come to the surface over the past few years, even more, with the abuse, not just sexual abuse, verbal abuse, you name it. And, as a rookie, when you're first year in the league. I was playing in the top Canadian junior hockey league in the world. Basically, there's three leagues: Ontario, Quebec, and the Western Hockey League. And so, me being out west, I was playing in that top league and being the youngest player on just turned 16, and the majority of the players were all 18, 19, and 20. And so the brunt of the jokes, the hazing, being urinated on, the abuse mentally, physically, emotionally really took its toll, and just trying to fit in. So to fit in, alcohol is a huge part of the hockey culture. And, the next thing I know, I found out that, I wasn't a good drinker in the beginning, but I became very good, very fast. And, I believe everything is divinely orchestrated. That first year away from home was very difficult, but, the injuries, what got me the most, I sustained a really, really bad concussion. A few of them actually, but the education back then with concussions weren't where they are now.
Right.
And, really I should have came home right away. It was, but, back then it was, I didn't want to let myself down, but, my parents, the community that I came from.
Suck it up and keep playing there.
Suck it up and keep playing. I was, one of the top prospects in Canada.
Yep.
And so it was basically, self-will, just, just trying to go. And then at the same time, being out of the lineup, trying to fit in, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll is behind the scenes. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And, that extreme addictive personality, I had no idea that, that alcohol would be such a huge component and become such a big part of my life. And I used the alcohol basically to self-medicate the injuries and then a lot of the emotional stuff that was going on at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say, were you on any kind of painkillers with the concussions and stuff? Or
oh God, there was. I mean, you walk into the dressing room, you could get whatever you wanted. There was, oxys, there was Vicodins, there's Percocets, there's, whatever you want, you get. If you were hurt, they'd shoot you up and get you back on the ice. We
heard the same thing from pro footballers in the U.S. Exact same thing. There was a safe. You could get whatever drugs you wanted. And the whole point was, if you didn't go out and play, there was a whole line of people that wanted to go and take your position. So you had to literally suck it up and play no matter what.
Absolutely.
Same idea.
My dad was like, never stay down, so it was, get right back up and keep going. And, so I'd see the stars and get nailed, but I'd be right back up and keep trying to go at it. But, after that first concussion, I didn't know what was going on, but something shifted in my brain. And, I wasn't able to ever really see the puck right. I was, there was like, my skill set was very high. And I wasn't able to, and I was getting yelled at, and the puck would go into the right corner, and sometimes I would think it was going into the left corner. Everything changed.
Interesting.
From that first hit. It was a very traumatic blow.
Yeah. So you had like some kind of damage to whatever optic nerves there. It sounds like.
Well, what happened was I got nailed on the crown of my head, and at the same time, I broke my shoulder in 3 places.
Oh,
and dislocated it at the same time.
Oh, God.
So, but that's the thing. I didn't even know what depression was. I didn't know what anxiety was at that time. You're young and you're very resilient at that time too. And so it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm not playing now. I'm sitting in the stands. And I'm watching my peers get ahead and whatnot. And it was like going down the rabbit hole. And, it was basically, that's when, drinking became a huge theme in my life. Came home after that summer, and, that identity of now it's like Ryan, the hockey player, like I believe we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. We're not what we do. We're not our name, whatever, it can go down the spiritual whole thing. But I took on an identity and I changed. It was just I wasn't myself anymore. You get that big thing called an ego, and
No.
um,
Fentanyl is the single deadliest drug threat our nation has ever encountered, and fentanyl is everywhere. From large metropolitan areas to rural America, no community is safe from this poison. Steered Straight, a nonprofit drug education group based in Tennessee, is on a mission to educate students, teachers, parents, and communities on the dangers of fentanyl through their free Fentanyl, Fake and Fatal online course. This course was created for middle and high school students as well as teachers and parents. You can find it at www.courses.steeredstraight.org. We must take every opportunity to spread the word to prevent fentanyl-related overdose deaths and poisonings from claiming scores of American lives every day. Once again, that's www.courses.steeredstraight.org for a free course on fentanyl. In his 10 years as a top draft pick and starting center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Randy Grimes had to play through pain or lose his job. This led to an opioid addiction, and eventually he lost nearly everything. But Randy beat the addiction, then founded Pro Athletes in Recovery, and now details his story in his riveting book, Off Center, a memoir of addiction, recovery, and redemption in professional football, with the foreword by iconic player and coach Mike Ditka. We know Randy's story and highly recommend Off Center. It will inspire you to create your own comeback. Available at Amazon and anywhere books are sold.
5 years of really trying to slug it out. And
that's what I was going to ask you. How long did you actually play professional hockey? So it was 5 years?
Well, that was junior.
So
junior.
You didn't even make it up to the seniors. Wow.
I did. No, I did. I played professional for, close to parts of 5 years professional. And those were years that, I didn't get drafted because of my injuries.
Right.
Concussions were a huge theme in my hockey journey.
Right.
And concussions, drinking, drugging, and everything else that goes along with it. Okay. And, I kind of got what you say blackballed as that party guy. Yep. And, like I said, my dream turned into a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I stopped caring. I stopped caring about anything, really. And it was at the age of 20 where the BC bud boom had hit, and there was a huge demand down in the United States of America. Marijuana was very accepted in our province.
Okay.
It was part of our culture.
What is BC bud boom? What does that mean?
Well, BC marijuana. So bud is the flower of the marijuana.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where I had all these contacts down in the United States where it was illegal and frowned upon, but the demand from we had at the time, in North America, the best marijuana in North America came from British Columbia, Canada.
Ah.
And next thing you know, trade routes, hikes through mountains, bushwhacks, kayaks, zodiacs, planes, rigs, you name it. Wow. I was finding a way to get it across, and which started off with me going through the board. You can watch this on National Geographic.
Okay.
My lifestyle. I'll actually send you a link where you can share with your viewers.
Perfect.
And it started off really small, and it's like that. I've mentioned it many times before. The disease of more, and I couldn't supply the demand. Next thing you know, I'm involved with I'm leading the charge of gangs, this gang, that gang, this gang. And it became very, very toxic, yet at the same time, fueled on adrenaline, millions and millions and millions of dollars are coming in, hundreds of pounds turns into, 5 pounds turns into 10, turns into 20, turns into 50, turns into 100, turns into 500. Next thing you know, you're doing 1,000 a month with all these different trade routes. and many mouths to feed along the way. A very dangerous business. Started
Yeah.
off all fine and fluffy, and then I found myself at age 23. I'm like, I'm making way more money selling weed down in the States. I never sold marijuana in Canada ever.
Okay.
Everything went down south.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't need to play hockey anymore. I got this last thing I need to do. I'm making more money than any NHL hockey player shipping weed across the border. And, it got to the point where I wasn't doing it myself. I was orchestrating everything from, fully encrypted BlackBerries in Costa Rica. I had a chartered accountant running the books and everything. I mean, I ran it like a Fortune 500 business. That's how I ran it.
Wow.
And, but none of that ever made me truly happy. The substance abuse went through the roof, and especially when I got to the point where the money was so big and I didn't have to be in Vancouver. I was traveling the world and jet setting and partying like a rock star with, celebrities and this and that. And, but nothing was ever really filling me up with true joy or happiness. No $10,000 stack or hockey bag or duffel bag full of money could ever really fill the cup of happiness.
Yeah. What drugs were you doing? What was your drug
Every
of choice?
drug known to man, for Christ's sakes. I mean, you name it. MDMA, cocaine. I never had to pay for it. It was always right there. It was that fast lane lifestyle. Everything was on a platter, literally. So, when you're going to the fancy dancy mansion parties and you're living that lifestyle, it's just all right there for the taking. Right. And, up for days on end. The party it just never stopped. It just kept going and going and going. The biggest parties in the world. Oh, Ibiza. Okay, we're flying to Ibiza. All right, Cancun spring break. Okay, we're going to Cancun spring break.
I take it you weren't married at the time.
I wasn't married.
Okay.
But I did have, I had some girlfriends at the time. I wasn't always the most faithful guy in the world. And, it was kind of a sign of the times, and young, dumb, and
children.
I have a daughter
Okay.
She's now 23, and she's overcome a lot of her own adversities. She's 2 years clean now off of methamphetamines I have a granddaughter, and she lives down in the States. I met her my first year of professional hockey. I was 20. I left halfway through my junior year. I was putting up some pretty good numbers, and I was good enough to turn pro. And I met her mom, and at 23, had a little baby girl.
Okay.
And then my luck ran short with the whole marijuana thing. It was, mother and I were, really conflicted with like, okay, well, hockey's not paying the bills here, but you're making so much money doing the marijuana thing. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to do it for 1 year. I'll do it for 1 year. I'll make as much money as I possibly can, and then shut her down, quit it.
Okay.
And
famous last words.
Oh yeah. So we made that deal. And actually a close friend at the time who I grew up playing hockey with, he was wondering how I was making all this cash, and how I was driving this car and living this lifestyle and whatnot. And I brought him into the circle as one of our drivers, and he actually ripped me off. Myself and my partner had no idea, for about $300,000 Canadian dollars worth of marijuana, about $400,000 American worth of marijuana. I was scared at that time. That was the first time. Now I'm like, okay, well, this isn't just fun and games. This is organized crime.
Yeah.
I was kidding myself before that, thinking this was just like kind of a fun thing to do.
Hobby.
And, it's just a little bit of marijuana going across the border, and we're cashing in and having a blast, right?
Yep.
And at that time, we were getting our shipments. It was the summertime, through a major bushwhack through the mountains in Glacier National State Park. And it was a full operation that was going on, where 4 hikers would have 25 pounds of weed in each knapsack. And it would get picked up on the other side, sent down to one. I had about 4 contacts in Seattle at the time. My driver at the time, he ripped me off, and I got scared out of my wits. And I decided to take it upon my own shoulders and do the hike. So nothing bad would happen, and I wouldn't take another hit, another loss.
Okay.
And I lost my freedom and went to prison for almost 2 years.
Wow. You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast, or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com, or call us at 727-314-7080. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and give us a 5-star review. Sometimes the hardest thing about getting someone into recovery is getting them to agree to treatment. Bobby Newman, a certified drug counselor with 30 years experience and an over 85% success rate as an interventionist, has created a series of 12 videos that you can use right now to learn every step to get your loved one to agree to treatment. Call 866-989-4499 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby.
And down in the United States, I was told that.
So you got caught.
I got caught. Had my face rammed down and plastered on the side of the highway with guns drawn to my head.
Okay.
And my life flashed right before me, there. And
you were, I'm sorry, I cut you off, but you were in the U.S. at the time, or you were in Canada?
I was in the U.S.
You're in the
at that time. So I crossed the border illegally with a conspiracy to import 100 pounds of high-grade marijuana.
Okay.
And next thing I know, the legal process went through, and there was 5 of us in on that conspiracy, and I had no idea that it was him that actually did the ripoff, and he actually set us up as well. At the airport, they got him getting a rental car to come and pick us up on that other side of the border. And
this was your quote unquote best friend.
Yeah, one of my best friends at the same time. So
okay.
Yeah, and I found out actually the day I got out of prison that it was him that did that, and he took off somewhere. I saw him years later, and I did forgive him. But prison was probably one of the best things that ever could have happened to me.
How so?
Well, that whole year leading up to prison, I was using and abusing MDMA, cocaine. I probably maybe took 5 days off of drinking and drugging during that whole year.
Okay.
As my daughter's mother and I had actually broken up.
Okay.
Our deal kind of went sour. She saw what was going on, and it was kind of dangerous in her mind. Obviously, she didn't want my daughter around it.
Right.
And I kept going. And so when I went into prison, I got sober in prison for the first time. My mind felt very clear, but at the same time, it is like a college for criminals, so to speak. And I had high aspirations of coming out and doing other things. I was actually thinking about getting into acting.
Oh, okay.
I was like, hockey's done, so maybe I'll get into acting or something like that. I've always been quite creative, and I like to write and all kinds of stuff like that. I wrote a lot when I was in prison as well. But when I got out, the same guys were there, and it was right back into the old antics. And that lasted for about another 4 or 5 years after I got out, and it just got absolutely massive. And, it was one of those things where it was a machine, a nonstop cash generating machine that just couldn't be stopped. And then I just hit such a low point.
Did you end up back in prison? Did they?
No, I didn't. Actually.
Okay.
No. No, but at that point, the business it ran itself. I was basically, I had all the connections and new connections from prison and whatnot, and it
So
literally
what,
self.
I
Go
was going to
ahead.
say, what made you want to stop? I mean, why
Well,
did you stop?
I was living in a big mansion up in the in the nicey place in Vancouver, and I had this big party. There was probably about 400 people at that party one night, and I'd been up for days. I mean, I couldn't even breathe out my nose. I think I put so much cocaine in my nose, and I had mirrored ceilings on my roof. And I remember looking up at the mirrored ceilings, and I just could not look at myself. I broke down. I remember being in the shower trying to get this stuff out of my nose, and I literally I lost it. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm done. And getting out was the hardest part because I had a very large crew, around me, and I was, kind of the leader of the pack, and
Here's
people
my
were,
2 weeks notice. I'm done.
yeah, and
Yeah.
with that, there was a price,
Yeah. Yeah.
I got out. Yeah, I had lots of cleaned money through properties and this and that, whatever. And but they were like, you're with us now, but if we find out that you do it again, we will kill you. Next thing you know,
Wow.
there's hits on my head, extortions, and it wasn't the
Wow.
first time. I mean, there was a lot of really, a gang war broke out in Canada in 2008. So there's, threats on my life then. So
Wow.
it's just enough was enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I literally, I left everything behind in Vancouver. I moved to Montreal, Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And I was basically kind of just running from my past. And
Wow. Were you clean and sober? Were you
at the
or were,
time I was, yeah.
okay.
I've actually been in recovery since I was 27. I'm 47 now.
Okay,
I've
so 20
had
years. Wow.
for 20 years,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I've had about 4 or 5 slips along the way,
Okay.
and I'll be coming up this July 8th will be 7 years without a sip of alcohol.
Well
Uh,
done.
it's completely done. I haven't even had the slightest itch of having a drink. Not even
Okay.
the slightest itch of having a drink. But something that has been a theme in my life. When I was actually going through tremendous anxiety about 10 years ago,
Okay.
and my brain was starting to feel a little bit off, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, something's going on with my brain, and I didn't know if it was just anxiety and a lot of fear from that that business, and a lot of
Yeah.
PTSD trauma from
I would
that.
say, I mean, it's well-founded fear. Okay. You were in a very dangerous business and, yeah, it's
And I'm
kind
a
of,
sensitive guy. I never
yeah,
shot a gun before. I've never put a hit on anybody's head. I've look. I haven't always been honest because I wasn't living an honest life.
right.
And I was going to AA and had years sobriety, and I was still running that business. And I'd be sitting in an AA room with a BlackBerry, and how can I be getting honest and sober when I'm running an illegal business,
Yeah.
cross borders, really.
Understood.
And so I was feeling a lot of shame and guilt, and but I'll get back to the point here. About 10 years ago, I was not feeling right, and I went to a psychiatrist because I was feeling anxious all the time, like it was coming out of my body, feeling very dissociated and whatnot. And I didn't really know that much about how post-traumatic stress can actually affect a human being, and how complex it can actually be, and the complexities that have fed into my own traumas. Because I was abused when I was, by a dentist years ago. That came up. I was abused by a hockey coach, sexually abused at 14.
Wow.
And so these things started coming up,
Yeah.
and he prescribed me a good old benzodiazepams.
Benzos.
Yep. And prescribing an addict, those kind of medications, as we well know now, I had no clue.
Right.
I'm thinking I'm taking a pill that's gonna, help me calm my nerves down and feel okay. And in the meantime, I'm going to meetings. I'm out of the game, the criminal element, so to speak.
Yep.
And for the first, I would say 4 years that I was taking these benzodiazepams, and I wasn't abusing them completely. It didn't take much. I take one pill and it would be like getting a warm hug pretty much.
Right.
But right around the 4-year mark, I was like, my thinking started slowing down. I was getting a bit of apathy. My creative faculties weren't kind of working like they were. And I literally, here's the pill bottle right here. I'm on a taper right now.
Right.
I've come off them before. But I'll get into something really that's very important is that, they stop working. That's the thing,
You need more.
Well, it started with Xanax.
Okay.
And got off the Xanax, and then he prescribed me clonazepam.
Okay.
And so I went across 5 countries advocating for mental health awareness in 2019. And I'd been off them. I've been clean off the benzos for almost a year. And I started getting these panic attacks and major anxiety going across Canada, especially. A lot of the sensitive topics that I was dealing with, there was a lot of pressure dealing with like the major media outlets, with the CBC, like all the, the media was on me at the time. It's, I would say it's the second largest landmass in the world, Canada. Yeah. So, and I started getting these anxiety, and the panic started really, really like igniting into me. And I was dealing with a lot of parents and talks along the way with, people that, parents that had lost their children to suicide, all these mental health issues and whatnot, that my heart was just like breaking as I was doing this very, God, it was a hard ride, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need something to take the edge off. And so I started taking the clonazepams again. I went to the hospital because I was like, I literally couldn't cope with the anxiety that was going on. And so for the past 4 years, it's not like I've been completely abusing the hell out of them, taking 10 a day or whatever. I think the most I've taken in a day, my prescription says I should be taking 3 of these benzodiazepams a day.
Okay.
And I've never exceeded 4 over the last 4 years. And in the last year, I have been trying to do my best to taper off these bloody things. Mm-hmm. In the last month, I think I've taken, I'm down to little chips, like 2 little chips off a pill. And talk about feeling like, coming off alcohol for me was easy. That was so easy. I felt great when I came off alcohol, but coming off these benzos has literally, it's like, I don't know what it's like to come off heroin. I've snorted heroin before.
Oh, it's way worse. I can tell you, because we've talked to people who work with addicts coming off of heroin, and you can come off of heroin completely cold turkey, I think in a week, not much more than a week. Oh, yeah. But when you're talking benzos, you have to taper. You cannot just stop. You can die if you stop.
You can die. You can go into seizures. I know Jordan Peterson, he's had his issues, and he's very open and honest about that. Yeah. And I've watched a lot of his videos. In the last couple months, I've really educated myself more on, the severity of how bad these pills are for you. Yeah. There's natural ways out there that can tackle anxiety, depression, you name it.
Yep. And we've had a lady on the podcast who's here in Clearwater, and that's exactly what she does. She helps people get off of things like diet.
I'd love to meet her. Maybe you can introduce me to her. That would be amazing.
Absolutely. I will do that, because she gets people off of benzos through natural means,
Oh
and then
God,
has a
that's
lot of
God's.
natural remedies for things like anxiety and such. She's got a
Yeah.
ton of them. We will definitely, her name is Pamela Seefeld for
Okay.
anybody watching, because we've got at least 2 interviews with her, and she's here in Clearwater, and I will definitely share her contact information.
That would be
'Cause-
incredible because
Yeah.
like, you know what the worst part of it is coming off these things is the insomnia. I'll go 2 days, no sleep. I'm sweating, stuff's coming out of me. And then it's like, you feel literally like you're coming out of your skin.
Yeah.
And it's no way to live.
No.
It takes the joy out of life. And you know, I love life. I want to do so many things with my life still. And it almost, it makes you feel like you're just like the apathy that goes along with it. And I have a lot of, not a lot, but I have say three close friends of mine right now. Actually one lady was on your show. And you know, she's been about a year clean off Xanax. Tracy, remember Tracy?
Yeah.
So you know, we talk and whatnot, and you know, she's still dealing with the withdrawals a year.
I remember
the Xanax.
Yeah, I remember her saying that.
So
people listening, take note. These are not drugs to fool around with.
Yeah.
You know, and just because a doctor prescribes them does not mean that they are less dangerous than some street drugs. They just aren't.
100%. And it's funny, you know, we're my partner we're doing a TV series. It's called True Redemption, and it's focusing on healing and the collective trauma in the world right now. You know, Theron Fleury's in the show, Elvis Stoico. There's Dan Carity, who you had on your show as well. He's in the show. I sent you a trailer for the to give a peek on kind of what it is, and I don't know if you watched it yet, but don't share it with anyone because the world's got to see it first. But
okay.
You know, the gist of it is all about healing, and but a big theme is intertwining my story that wasn't really told in National Geographic and intertwining it in through this show. And you know, Benzos, I bring it up and I talk about it a lot in the show. And one of the hardest parts about filming this show is actually, you know, being on these bloody things and you know, talking about it. But if I don't talk about it, you know, I'm blessed enough where I have the platform where I can actually talk about it. Before I was actually quite embarrassed. I was like, well, am I sober? You know, like I haven't had a drink in 7 years, and then it starts messing with your psyche a little bit. And I'm all about like quality, not quantity. So it's like just for today is really the moment. You know, we're living in eternal now, so to speak. And you know, my parents don't understand too. You know, I'm very close to my folks. And you know, my mother, God bless her, she's like, well, I'll be happy when you get off them. I'm like, I'm down to like this much, you know, and like, they don't understand, you know, they're in that era where they they kind of don't want to understand what they don't want to understand, that it's not easy.
No, and it's dangerous, and you can tell them that, or they could watch the podcast that it's dangerous to just stop cold turkey. It can, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I had to take some deep breaths. I knew I was coming on today and talk to you guys, and I felt a huge responsibility to really open up this dialogue about benzodiazepams, because a lot of people, you know, in those AA rooms or that are sober, that have 20 years sobriety. You know, my first sponsor, God bless his soul, he actually took his life. You know, his nickname was Miracle, and I won't say his last name or his first name, whatever. But I remember he was taking Xanax. I had no idea what the hell they were back then when I first went into the rooms, and you know, so it.
And the problem with anti-anxiety medications is that the side effect is anxiety.
Exactly.
You know, so that's
crippling anxiety that's worse than it was before I ever took one of these benzodiazepams.
Exactly.
I would give my left foot to have that anxiety back and not be dealing with the anxiety that I get now.
I get it.
And the sweats and the dizziness, and and I also deal with PTSD and the concussion stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not playing victim here. This is just the truth.
No. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Well, you're doing the right thing and tapering off. And
Yeah.
I will send you, in fact, I'll put it at the end of this podcast, even though the podcast is you and not Pamela, that maybe somebody listening is going through the same thing and they would like to be reminded of how to reach her. So I'll put that in there. And yeah, our hope is that you can whittle down to where you can get completely off of it. But I know you're not the only person out there that's dealing with this. And
Absolutely.
so,
there was 40 million scripts just in the USA alone last year for Xanax.
Oh, yeah.
40 million scripts. So it's
Yeah.
40 million people that are taking, benzodiazepines.
Right.
And, and I mean, I don't want to say I'm happy about it, but the fact that people like Jordan Peterson and many other people, I mean, you can type into YouTube or whatever, but, the severity and the ramifications of a benzodiazepam is coming so to the surface globally these days.
Yep.
That, for anybody out there, you really, really want to think very seriously about it. When your psychiatrist isn't always right. I mean, and mine, God bless him, he actually apologized to me when we were doing the filming of the TV series. We did a shoot actually in his office, and he said, "Ryan, I am so sorry that I prescribed you these pills. You should have never been prescribed these pills because all my anxiety, all that stuff was all PTSD and concussion related."
Yeah.
And both those can be dealt with in, psychotherapy for PTSD and for concussions. You can manage it and get it better with certain modalities and whatnot, but never benzodiazepines and even antidepressants. They may work for some people, but they never work for me. I tried them once and they made me sick.
Yeah. Well, thank you for shedding the light on benzos. I think that, there are going to be people who are listening who are going to think twice about it and maybe 3 and 4 times about it. And I really appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate everything that you have planned, and definitely keep us posted.
Well, there's one other thing I'm going to be doing, actually.
What's that?
I was in the last few days here, I've been thinking about, I really miss going across. See, when I went across Canada, I'd already done 5 countries in Asia, Southeast Asia.
Okay.
I failed to mention that I got a pardon, the first of its kind, as a humanitarian, to be allowed back to the United States of America after I crossed Cambodia to help with the eradication of human trafficking and child sex slavery. And I did a TED Talks on that as well.
Okay.
I also did a TED Talks after I went across Canada for mental health as well.
Okay.
And I really miss, I believe so much awareness comes through action. And so I've made the definite decision, and with the help of other people coming together here, it's either a rollerblade or a cycle, bless you, across the United States of America this summer. So that gives me 6 months, get off these bloody benzos, and talk more, shed more light about it, but everything mental health. And I think that the fact that I was never allowed back to the States again, but now I am, a Canadian going down to the United States of America and advocating for mental health, because we are in the biggest mental health crisis that we've ever seen these days.
Yep.
And, I haven't decided if I want to go East Coast to West Coast, but I'm going to do it. My mind is set. And on each leg, I want people to be joining in and sharing their stories and really blow this up to make, everyone feel that it's okay. They say it's okay to feel not okay, but you know what? We're never alone here. And it's not just about mental health. It's about bringing humanity together. It's about peace.
I love it.
Peace and love. At the end of the day, that's what we are. That's the source of what we came from. We come from a source of love.
Yep.
And I really believe that if we can, expand that love outwards from our heart in any way possible, we can make a difference in this world.
I think that's huge. And please keep us posted on your ride across the U.S. We definitely want to know about it when it happens. Okay.
Maybe we can do a couple. Maybe we can do a couple of lives or podcasts when I go across the states, and we can, kind of do something like that.
I would love that. I would love that. I think that would be great. Sure, absolutely.
By then, I'll be off benzos completely,
and we will rejoice in that.
We will rejoice. Oh, and then I'll have to come to Florida and give you a big hug.
There you go. I like it. We are set. Ryan, thank you for talking to us today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being as candid and as honest as you are. And that's huge with our listeners because they don't want to hear, excuse my bad word, they don't want to hear the bullshit. They want to hear the truth.
The bullshit.
Yeah, they want to hear the truth. And that's what you gave them. And I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for all the millions and billions of people out there that are suffering, there's no shame whatsoever in saying, I need help.
Thank you for listening today. If you have a concern about benzos, if you're on benzos, you're thinking about getting on benzos and you want to reach out to Ryan because he obviously has a very strong opinion about it, you can contact him on Instagram. It's Ryan Phillips, Phillips, Ryan Phillips 888 on Instagram. And he is more than willing to talk to you. He's more than willing to give you what he knows about benzos. And yeah, he's a good guy. So thank you for listening. And we'll be back again next week with another interview. So get clean and sober if you need to. If you need our help, you know where to find us.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.